This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Welcome to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton. I really appreciate you listening to the show. And a little quick heads up here, if you can give us a review on Apple or Google or wherever you get your podcasts and a rating, 5 stars if you think we've earned it, I would be deeply grateful. Today's conversation is with Jean Bjork, the president and owner of Bjork Construction, a general contractor based out of Fremont, California in the Bay Area. And we have a terrific conversation discussing how she started her career as a welder in her parents' small business and how she moved from there into launching her own construction company. Her husband is a carpenter, and she owns that construction company. She's grown it into a successful enterprise. She's brought her daughter into that business, and we really go deep into the experience of women in the construction industry, how they can thrive in the business, some important leadership traits that are essential to success, rookie mistakes that new leaders make, and we end up with 3 words of advice for women who want to get into construction. Jean is very open about her experiences, and I think you'll find her insights deeply helpful. So enjoy this episode of Construction Genius, and again, I would be grateful if you would leave us a review and a rating wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you very much. All right, here we go. Jean, thank you very much for joining me.
Yes, glad to be here.
Awesome. And so today we're just going to walk through a little bit of your history in terms of your experience in the construction industry. So I'd like to just kick it off by asking you, how did you get into construction?
Well, I grew up in a blue-collar family, like a lot of people have, and I was always told that having a trade was really important, that if you had a trade, you would be able to take care of yourself for life. And that's kind of how I was brought up. And I was fortunate to have parents that really didn't see me as, oh, you need to go into these type of, you need to be a nurse or a secretary. I grew up in a family where I was told that I could do anything.
That's interesting. So tell me a little bit more about that. Was your dad in the trades? Was your mom in the trades? Give me a little more on that. That's interesting.
Yeah, neither of my parents went to college. My dad was a welder by trade. My mom was a secretary, as many women were back in the day. My mom was a working mom, and then she was a bookkeeper. And so my parents had a business, and that's how I learned my first trade, which was welding. Of course, they had a welding machine shop business. And so at a young age, I would go to the family business like the rest of my siblings and work. And I learned about welding. I also learned about how to run a small business.
That's beautiful. So when you were doing that, and what was this, 35 years ago, something like that?
I don't want to say.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
It was about 5 years ago. Okay, fair enough.
No, it was a long time ago. You're right.
I understand. How were you? Tell me about when you began as a welder. How were you received in that environment? What was your experience with that? Tell me more about that.
Well, since it was a family business, I would work, after high school at my family's shop, and I would do work for people, and I would hear from people, you're not going to have her fix, because it was a job shop.
Right.
In a rural area, so a lot of times it's farmers coming in with farm equipment that needs to be fixed, or trailer hitches, things like that.
Right.
That's what we did, or machining things. I mostly cut. I cut a lot of materials. We also sold materials, so you would get like an order, and then I would put the order together, measuring everything, and it had to be 45'd or what kind of angles they wanted on their cuts. And then also the welding, and I'd hear from people. So there was 2 parts of my parents' business. There was a front area and there was a back area. I mostly worked in the back area. People didn't see me a whole lot. sometimes people did make comments, not only because I was a girl, probably because I was like 15. She's not going to do this, and you're not going to charge me that for her working on my stuff.
And so what did your dad say to that?
He would say, she welds better than you do, or something like
Nice.
that.
That's beautiful. That's so that parental support and that mentality of you can do anything, that was something that was really important to you, it sounds like.
Yeah, and my mom, she ran all the business part of the business. She did the banking, the bookkeeping, the overseeing of the running of the business, and my father he ran the floor.
What did you learn from your mom that has impacted the way you now run your business? So give me a little bit about how you got into your own business and how your parents' influence kind of impacts you today.
Oh, it impacts me a lot. My mom's still alive, fortunately. My dad passed away a long time ago at a very young age. But my mom, she was always a businesswoman, before anything. And she taught me, that when you run a small business, there's lots of things you have to pay for, insurance and stuff behind the scenes. So make sure that you get all your stuff straight, so that you're charging the correct amount. And do your homework, keep on top of it. Make sure you do your books properly, do your bank properly. If you need credit, go get credit.
So you started with your dad as a welder, and then where did your career go from there?
Well, I moved to the Bay Area when I was 19, and my first job that I had in the Bay Area was working at the GM plant in Fremont.
Right on.
And on the welding line. So, because it was very hard to get, when I came out of high school, that we were in a recession. So when I went to get a job at 19, it was very hard getting jobs, but I was fortunate enough to get on there. But I hated the work. I hated line work. I just couldn't. I lasted 6 months there and I quit because I couldn't handle working on a line. It's just monotonous. So then I went to work at Todd Shipyards, and
Awesome.
he wanted to start the business. It was his idea, and I always said to myself, I would never, have a family business, because I saw how hard it is. It's hard when you have a business; it takes over your life.
Yes,
I knew that. I knew going in that it was going to take over my life.
Yeah. So speak to that a little bit. So as you knew that going in, what was it that kind of pushed you over the edge, you and your husband together, to say, okay, we're going to do this?
I don't know, because it was more like, let's see if it works. It wasn't like, I didn't think I'd be here 30 years later, but we are.
That's awesome.
When you start something, you're not sure if you're going to be here next year, because as everybody knows, like only 1 out of 10 businesses survive the first year.
Yes, or something like that, or the first 5 years. It's
something like that. It's a horrible statistic, and it's a very true statistic. So
let me ask you this: in light of starting, you go back to what your father's advice was about having a trade, and when you have a trade, you can always build a career. And you had some experience as a welder at that point, a number of years. Did that impact your decision at all, in the sense that, hey, we can try this out. If it doesn't work, I can always go back and get a job somewhere else?
Well, at the same time that I was doing that, I started college, because I always wanted to go to college. I didn't want to be a tradesperson per se. I actually wanted to get into the health field. So I was an undergraduate in health science. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at that time, but I knew I wanted a career in health somewhere. So I worked on that. And at the same time, we started a business and started a family, and I was going to college.
That's beautiful. So take me back to the beginning of the business there. What was your biggest struggle when you guys first started the business?
I think the biggest struggle was between me and my husband and working together.
Okay.
That's always the hardest. It's hard enough in marriage, but to work together, and there has to be a consensus on who does what as far as power structure, because marriage is a power structure. I don't care what other people say, but it definitely is.
Yep.
And not one person can have all the power. It's imbalanced, and it won't work, and it falls apart.
That's very interesting.
I think just like marriage, going into business together, it is also something that you have to figure out who's going to do what and who's in charge of what.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the biggest struggle, was my husband trying to tell me about business when he didn't have any background in it or anything. He grew up in a family where his parents worked for other people.
So you brought that experience of observing your parents in business, and that influenced your ability to kind of take those parts of the business on when you guys started?
Yeah, of course. You got to do your books. You got to, make sure you have good financials are important.
Yeah.
That's important in business. A lot of people don't realize it. And that can take a business down, whether you take on too much work or not enough work, but you got to make sure that you always have coverage.
Okay. So as you started the business out and you guys were just getting into the swing of it, what did you do to get through those first few years of challenge and get to the point where you could say, hey, we're going to be here for a while. I'm not going to go back to healthcare or, welding at the can factory?
Because it's exciting, because we were getting jobs. We were doing good on the jobs. We started out in custom homes.
Right on.
And so, one custom home led to them telling other people, and we were just, building large custom homes left and right all over the Bay Area. And now it's exciting. And so at that time, too, I decided to go back to college to learn about construction, management, construction law, things that would help my business, because I had been taking other things, but not the stuff for my business. So I actually went back to school. I didn't actually get a degree. I already had a degree, and decided to take more. Education's where it's at. Whenever
awesome.
You do, do your homework.
That's
Figure
awesome.
it out. There's people that know more than you. I would say, and always keep learning. I'm always going and trying to learn new things about our industry.
That's terrific. You started your business, 30 years ago? At the time, I'm sure there weren't a lot of women who were leading construction companies.
Right.
What was your experience as you built the company? How did you handle the male-dominated hierarchy of a construction industry? What did you do to make sure that people understood that you were there and that you had credibility and that you weren't just the secretary behind the scenes, but you were actually the leader of the organization?
Because I was the one doing the contracts. I did run into several, clients who wouldn't really like to deal with me. So I would get other people in our company, to be the in-between person to make that person comfortable. And that may sound like a sellout, but you know what? It really isn't. I'm just doing what every salesperson does and try to figure out the client and then make sure they're comfortable and that we can do the work for them.
That's really interesting there, because some people, they may not be able to lay aside their ego in a situation like that. They might say, hey, well, screw you. If you don't want to deal with me, I'm the person who's, it's my gig. So it's interesting. How did you go through that process of sort of laying aside your ego in a certain way so that you might be able to move the business forward?
I think going through those years of being a woman in the welding industry probably prepared me for that, because I had heard everything by that time. I had been called everything by that time. And I just, you can't let other people dictate how you feel.
Right on.
Right?
Right on.
So you just do what you do, and that's their thing. You're not gonna change anybody and how they were brought up or how they feel.
Right.
The only way we can do it is slowly through perception. Right now there's only 9% of women in the construction industry. So when anybody, and it's through no fault of just the way society is, when you think of a construction worker, a woman doesn't come up in your head.
Right.
It doesn't come up in most people's heads.
Right.
So, you can't get angry about it. You can't say screw them. That's like cutting off your nose to spite your face.
What I'm hearing here from you is not a victim mentality. It's not the world's against me. It's like, okay, this is how it is. I'm going to deal with it. And I know what I'm doing. I'm good at what I'm doing. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it.
Exactly. But I'm sure going to lend a hand to the next woman that needs an opportunity.
So let's talk about that a little more, because I think there's one particular woman who's involved in your business. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, my daughter, Jessica Madrigal, she is a co-owner of my company. She's the best project manager I've ever met in my life. Of
Oh,
course,
okay.
I raised her, so I might have a little bit of a
No
prejudice
bias there,
towards
Gene.
her.
No biased.
Prejudice towards her, but she's a very hard worker, and she's a overachiever, I would call her.
So when she came
Because,
into the business, let's just talk about this a little bit. When she came into the business, what path did she take? Because, in a lot of family businesses, Dave starts the business and little Joey comes along and, little Joey is immediately put into a position of leadership and everyone in the company knows that Joey has no clue what's going on. So how did you guys handle that?
okay, that's a good one because I think that's bullshit. What you just said, it shouldn't be like that. Everybody's got to earn their place. It doesn't matter if you're part of the family or not.
Right on.
And outsiders may think that it's wrong, but they don't know the whole story always. So my daughter, she worked, in high school as all of my children, because I have a son and another daughter. I don't want to let them out, but I have 3 children. And she worked down here, during high school, helping out as a, as a PM engineer. Many times if I needed extra help, come down. And so she learned how to put, the accounting together and stuff and did some billings when she was in high school. But she started off in college saying that she wanted to get into law enforcement.
Uh-huh.
And after 2 semesters, she came to me and she said, I realized I really don't want to go into law enforcement. I want to do what you do. And that always melts out parents' heart because then it means that they might admire you a little bit.
Just a touch.
And so she quit where she was going to San Jose State, and then she went to Chico State construction management.
Right on. It's a good program.
And she went to that program. And right now she's working on getting her master's in construction management. And she also has 2 children and works full time.
When I think of your background, when I think of your daughter's background, it seems like both of you have a very high energy level.
You're probably right about that. I think, my energy level is not what it used to be, but yeah, I could get a lot done. And, when I was much younger, I'm slowing down just slightly.
Sure.
But one thing too, I want to really say this is, and I told her that when she came out of college, you're not going to come to work for me. You're going to go to work for other people.
Now, very interesting. Tell me about that then.
So I did tell her that. I said, you're going to go to, she graduated in 2008, 10 years ago, I think. It might have been 2006. Shoot, somewhere around there. Anyway, she graduated over 10 years ago, just before the recession. And so the one thing about her graduating class, too, is I believe there was only 5 girls out of like 220.
Yeah, I believe it.
But now I just talked to somebody at Chico State that interned with me last year, and she said there was like 35 women last year.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It's increasing.
That's great.
I mean, that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's better than 5.
Dude, that's a lot. That's a good increase there. So let me ask you this: when she went to work for somebody else for a while, and then when you were bringing her into the business, did you bring her in as an owner right away?
No, she came in as a project manager, but she had already been a project manager for other companies. And what's funny about when I brought her in is she had been working for other companies, and the first time I asked her, I gave her an amount, that I wanted to pay her that was more than what she was getting paid. She went back to her boss. She ended up staying because they matched.
Oh, interesting.
She ended up staying at the other company. And then I asked her like another year later.
Interesting. You were after her. You were recruiting her hard, huh?
I was recruiting her hard.
You're looking to steal her from the competition.
I'm thinking to myself, she grew up in the business. She had a little bit more advantage than other people. And she's so fantastic at her job. So yes, I had to recruit her and I had to pay her a lot of money to come to work for me.
Okay. So let's just explore women in construction just a little bit. You were citing a statistic earlier about 9% of the workforce in construction is female. And, from my experience, at least working with construction companies, most of those folks are working in the office on the accounting side of the, administrative support. What do you think needs to happen in order to move more women into the project management roles, into the field roles, even superintendents or foremen?
I think what has to happen is that they have to be given equal opportunity. I do think, though, more and more, I hear people even among companies saying, "Oh, you're looking for a project manager? Hey, Jean, this time try to get a girl."
Interesting. Now, why do you think that? Why do you think that is?
And then I say, well, there's only so many out there recruiting.
Yeah.
So it's not like I can just pick, I want a woman instead of a man. I want the best person. I don't care if they're purple.
Let me ask you this, because if you think about your background and how your attitude towards business, you didn't have a sort of an entitlement attitude where, you need to pay me a certain deal of respect. You were like, I'm going to go win my respect. I'm going to go win my business. In terms of bringing more women into the construction industry, I think some of the pushback that I sense from folks is, are you going to try and mandate to me certain things? Is this like I've got to do this in order to be trendy? So how do you balance the need to bring more women into the workforce in construction with this sort of pushback that sometimes occurs when people are thinking that it's being enforced in some way? You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I guess so. The one thing that's kind of crazy is that we don't have any real mandates. There's no government mandates.
Right. I'm thinking more of sort of a societal thing where just like, can you get me a girl next time? And you said, hey, my mindset isn't girl, boy. It's more who's the best person.
Right. And I think that's just all we have to do is the best person. But I also think it's kind of the only way to get more. We have not enough people in construction right now that are skilled.
Absolutely.
We have lack of skilled workers.
Yep.
So as right now, there's, as far as women going into roles that where they're management, like project managers, if you look at it, only, I think it's 7% right now, women are in, of all the project managers or management positions in construction, supposedly there's about 7%. I would think it's less than 7%.
Right.
But I read that statistic somewhere, and you don't know where they got the sample. So, yeah, right. And I took lots of statistics classes when I was in college, and I know statistics are bullshit for the most part. But anyway, getting back to your question about, the whole thing about women in construction, I think that just making it socially acceptable, I think it's not thought of as feminine or,
right.
And management's great. More women are going to college than ever before. In 1970, only 11% of women had undergraduate degrees. Yep. Now we're up to 40%, and we're surpassing the amount of men getting undergraduate degrees.
Yep.
But at the same time, they're not getting those degrees in construction. It's increasing slightly, but I think it's just letting people know the opportunities that are available. As a project manager, the salaries are quite competitive out there, especially right now.
Absolutely.
You could be making $150,000 to $200,000 easy.
Yep.
So, that doesn't sound too bad.
Yep. Nope.
The one problem with, the construction industry and women is people with children, single moms, even single dads. It's not conducive. The construction industry starts too early. What are you going to do with your child?
So let me ask you that. Because that's a key issue there. So let's say we want to bring more women into the construction trade, but then, women are primary caregivers. And, the job starts in the summer at 5:30, 6 in the morning. If you're pouring concrete, you're going to be starting 4:30 in the morning sometimes. How do we address that particular issue of balancing the family life with the work life for a woman who really wants to get stuck into the construction field work and things like that?
I think, right now women are doing it, or there wouldn't be any. There's, right. And having my own business it made it easier because I didn't have to be there at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I could make my own hours.
Right.
So, but a lot of people can't own their own business and don't have that option. So, whether you have family members or somebody, it's really hard. What we need, though, is we need to start talking to daycare centers and trying to get daycare centers. And I'm sure we're not the only industry. People that are in the baking business, there's tons of other industries that start very early and have different hours. finding those alternative, daycare places that will take kids during different hours, or be able to get them off to school, because in the morning, a lot of schools don't start till 8:30. And so, and I've dealt with people in my office that have had children, and they've said to me, I can't make it to work until 9:00. And we make those kind of, changes in their schedule as long as they can get their job done.
Right.
And I think that's it, just being flexible, because people have lives. And that's one thing about my business because constructions, and especially project management, it's not a 40-hour-a-week job.
No, it's not.
It's much more. But at the same time, you have to have a good balanced home life, or you're not going to be happy. And
Right.
if you're not happy, you're not going to do your job well. And so we have to make sure as owners of businesses that we take care of our employees, and we make sure that they understand that we will work with them to make sure that they have a good family life, and that we make those, concessions for them if needed.
Absolutely. As you think about either women or men coming into the construction trade, and you think about bringing someone up into a leadership role in your organization, what would you say are the most important leadership traits for a construction professional?
I would say know your shit.
Right on. What do you mean by that?
That's probably number one. Know what you're doing. Study your stuff. Know your projects inside and out. And then number two, listen. Listen. I would say to everybody. Everybody sees everything a little bit different. You're a manager. You're supposed to manage the job. Don't tell your clients all the problems. They hire you so that you deal with them, and they don't have to. I have to tell project managers that all the time. Don't run to the client with your problem.
Oh, interesting. That's a good one.
Because why have a project why have anybody managing it if you're wanting them to deal with the project? You come up with a solution before you talk to them.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. So,
and then also too, know your contracts, know your plans.
The whole idea of being competent and understanding the job is absolutely critical in terms of being able to lead people effectively then.
Yes, I believe so.
So what would you say are some rookie mistakes or common problems that you see again and again when someone gets into a leadership role?
I think one of the biggest rookie mistakes that I see people make is they stop listening to the people that they're overseeing.
Interesting.
Because they think they know it.
Oh.
Be open to listening to everything, or, you might discard what they have to say, but at least they might have some pearls there that you need.
Right on. So how do you discipline yourself to continue to listen to your people? What do you do?
Yeah, keep an open door policy. Keep an open door policy.
Okay.
Definitely. Let people be approachable to you, not scared of you.
Yeah. No. Okay. So that's interesting. So how do you manage that as the leader of an organization, knowing that you have a certain authority and a certain weight and responsibility? How do you manage to communicate to people that your door is open, not just actually you're not just it's not just that you open your door, but people can actually come and talk to you? How do you go about that part?
Tell them that they can talk to you anytime about it. There's no stupid questions, even if there really is stupid questions.
Yeah, right.
Just tell them there's not. No. I would say, there's no stupid questions. Just ask me anything. I won't get mad at you. Because, I'm sure I've said stupid things too, or asked stupid things, not thinking the whole thing out. But sometimes I think, the more heads are better than one, especially in a project.
Right.
And so, yeah, anything you hear can maybe facilitate what you're working on.
Right on.
And if they have questions, you're helping them to get their job done, which is something on the project, right?
Okay.
So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes I see people make. Number two, not knowing their contracts, knowing their plans as well.
Yeah.
I see people just making assumptions based on the last 10 projects they did, that the contract says this. I don't know why a lot of project managers always seem to have the answer right then. It's not going to kill you. It doesn't make you look worse if you say, let me check into that and I'll get back to you.
That's interesting. So it's funny. We keep coming back to those things of listening, knowing your stuff. I really like that one about not having to have an answer right away. But if you need to go check something, go check it and then get them the answer.
Yeah, give the correct thing, not the guess.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's wonderful. As we're wrapping up the interview here in terms of, again, the focus of bringing more women into the construction industry, what are 3 things that you would encourage women in terms of getting into the construction industry? What are 3 words of advice that you would give them?
First of all, it's a good place where you can, it's fun. You can see the buildings that you create, that you're part of. And there's no joy like being part of building America.
Right on.
And then number 2, I'd tell them you can make a good living. There's, a lot of opportunity out there. And also too, you know how that whole thing about women make 82 cents on it for every dollar a man makes? And
sure.
In the construction industry, the gap isn't that large. It's something like 94 cents for every dollar. So the construction industry, probably because it's unionized many times and there's other things going on, it's much more equal. You get paid for your job, more, not because you're a woman or a man. You get paid for the work that you do. And our industry, a lot of admins too are guys because they want to work up into, the field. So it's very equal field when it comes to pay.
It's interesting because construction is so performance driven that it's easy for someone to say, hey, this is what I did. I brought this project in on time and under budget, and this is my performance, and therefore pay me according to my performance.
Yes, I think that is true. And so it works good for both males and females in that way. I think but then I've been in this industry 30 years, so there's times you don't get paid that well because there's no work out there. And the company's trying to survive. So you have to do what you can do, but then there's other times where you can make a lot of money. But most of the time, we're apt to be able to make a good living.
Awesome. So there's great. It's fun. There's opportunity. The pay is excellent as well. Any other sort of incentives or advice?
There's a lot of organizations that women in construction can become part of that will help and mentor you so that you're not alone. I know when I started back in the late 70s being a welder, I didn't know that there was all these organizations like Tradeswomen Inc., like the YOPS. Which is, and there's also NAWIC. There's tons of organizations for women in construction that you can become part of that can help you, mentor you. And also too, you don't just need female mentors, you need male mentors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Find a good mentor to help you. Nobody can do it alone. It'll give you an edge.
Excellent.
And also be open. Always, this is another thing. You just asked earlier about, project managers, but this goes across the board. Always put yourself in the other person, the client's place. Always put yourself in the place of the other person that you work with, and you'll do well. That's
excellent. What do you want your legacy to be? After your career ends and you look back?
That I did good, that I did the best to my ability.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's all. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, just that I did the best I could.
Right on. Well, I just want to ask
that's all you can vote for and ask for, right?
Well, that's great. I mean, it's wonderful to have that perspective, particularly when you think about, the impact that you've had on the community and the people that you've employed over the years simply because you've been involved in building great buildings. Well, Gina, I really appreciate you taking the time, and it's been wonderful to have a chat with you. I'm personally inspired that you were inspired by your parents, and that you in turn have inspired your daughter to come into the business as well as your son. And I think it's a wonderful thing that we can have a positive impact on our families' lives, and our kids may actually want to hang around with us a little bit when we're older.
Yeah, that would be great.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
Okay, you too.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit. And always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.